Hello students, today I'm gonna talk about a very important group of drugs in chemotherapy. So before I go into reveal the name of the group of antibiotic, I wanted to proceed with an important question to all of you. So can anybody say what is the most common group of antibiotics prescribed in dental practice? Yes, anyone? Yes, you are correct. It's none other than a penicillin group of antibiotics. Can you name some penicillin antibiotics? Yes. Examples: penicillin G, ampicillin, amoxicillin, cloxacillin, and so on. Anyhow, we are going to discuss, and it will be discussed in detail in respective chapter. Basically, these penicillins will be discussed in beta-lactam antibiotics. So we know that this is one of the commonly used or prescribed antibiotic in dental practice. So you decided to prescribe the patient with amoxicillin. So before writing onto the prescription, patient says that, "Doctor, I'm allergic to penicillin, don't prescribe." Why? What is the reason? So patient has given a very clear-cut past history or a medication history saying that he was allergic to the penicillin group of drugs. So what are all the symptoms of penicillin allergy? Penicillin allergy, it starts with mild symptoms sometimes to it will be landed up with very severe symptoms like anaphylactic shock reaction, and most of the times the patient may die, so you cannot say. So here, what is the drug of choice for anaphylactic shock reaction? We all know that injection adrenaline. Okay, so whatever may be the reason, the patient says that don't prescribe penicillin, so we have to think of alternative antibiotics for the same condition. So can anyone say what is the alternative to penicillin? We all know that penicillin has got a spectrum of activity against mainly gram-positive bacterial infections. Usually when you are dealing with dental practice, the oral cavity is very rich with upper respiratory tract, and dental cavity is very rich with gram-positive bacteriums and as well as anaerobic organisms. For gram-positive infections, we will give penicillins, and for anaerobic infections, again drugs for anti-anaerobic drugs will be prescribed. Like metronidazole, tinidazole, and so on. That will be discussed in a different chapter. So here the scenario is, what is the alternative to penicillin? Can it be cephalosporins? Anyone? Yes or no? Yeah, I can see that most of the people are saying yes. But the real answer is no. You should never prescribe cephalosporins if the patient is having penicillin reaction or penicillin allergy. The literature says that 10% of the patient population who is allergic to penicillin will have adverse reactions to cephalosporin due to their cross reactivity. So what is this cross reactivity? Cross reactivity is because of their R1 side chain. if you look at the structure of penicillin and cephalosporins, here you can see one this R1 side chain. Here you can see that penicillin 6th position and cephalosporin 7th position. Because of this cross reactivity in the same similar side chains, they share similar reactions. So we all understood that cephalosporin should not be prescribed in case of a penicillin allergy. So what else left? So what is the alternative to penicillins? Definitely not cephalosporins. So the answer is macrolide antibiotics. So my dear students, today the class is about macrolide antibiotics. In these macrolide antibiotics, there are around 4 to 5 antibiotics will be there. It's very easy, very commonly asked in the examinations. Out of which the prototype macrolide is erythromycin. So the next few minutes I am going to talk about what is the mechanism of action of erythromycin and the spectrum of activity, and what are the pharmacokinetics and adverse drug reactions and therapeutic uses of erythromycin. Concentrate only these macrolides. They are nothing but erythromycin, clarithromycin, roxithromycin, azithromycin and telithromycin. So what makes why there is mycin some suffix here? Aminoglycosides that are derived from bacteria of Streptomycin genus are named with mycin, whereas those which are derived from Micromonospora are named with MICIN. So never ever confuse with these aminoglycosides with macrolide antibiotics. So మీకు అర్థమవుతుందా? Erythromycin or macrolides should not be confused with aminoglycosides. Prototype erythromycin. So erythromycin is isolated from Streptomyces erythraeus. It is bacteriostatic in nature in low dose. If you high concentration, this erythromycin can also act as a bactericidal. Static means static means the arrest the growth of the bacteria. Cidal means kills the bacteria. And we all know that we have discussed already, these macrolides are nothing but the alternative to penicillins. The patient is allergic to penicillin. In such cases only you will write or you will prescribe erythromycin. Now let us look at the antibacterial, the bacterial spectrum of activity of erythromycin. Please do remember, in chemotherapy, whenever you are writing about any antibiotic or antifungal or any other antiviral, you need to mention their spectrum. Here, like penicillins, erythromycin is mainly active against gram-positive organisms, and these are mainly drug of choice for group A streptococcal infections and pneumococcal infections. Streptococcal infections mainly of upper respiratory tract infections, and pneumococcal is slightly of upper to bit lower. So other intracellular germs like chlamydia and mycoplasma, this erythromycin group of drugs are very useful. So the next important thing is the mechanism of action. Here in chemotherapy, different antibiotics were categorized into different groups based upon their mechanism of action. Some they will work by inhibiting the cell wall synthesis like penicillin. Some they will inhibit protein synthesis like erythromycin. Some they will directly damage the DNA and RNA. Some they will interfere the electron transport, so etc. So here the erythromycin mechanism is it mainly inhibit bacterial protein synthesis. Let us look at in detail aspects of mechanism. It binds to the 50S ribosome. Basically there are two ribosomes will be there. One is a 50S ribosome and the second one is a 30S ribosome. So erythromycin, it goes and binds to the 50S ribosome subunit and inhibits bacterial protein synthesis by inhibiting the translocation process of mRNA. So it interferes the translocation process of mRNA so that the new amino acid or the nascent amino acid synthesis will be inhibited, or which was already synthesized, it will be terminated further. Now the next important question is, what other antibiotics which inhibits bacterial protein synthesis by acting on ribosomes? So apart from these macrolide antibiotics, we have other two groups of drugs. One is chloramphenicol, the other one is tetracyclines. So the chloramphenicol, which also acting by attaching to the 50S ribosome and inhibiting the protein synthesis, whereas the tetracyclines, it acts 30S ribosome. So you will often confuse which is 30 and which is 60. So T for tetracycline, 30, spelling is THIRTY, 30. So it may not work in all the cases, but for time being you remember tetracycline will attach to the 30S ribosome, whereas a chloramphenicol and as well as macrolides will be acting on 50S ribosome. Macro means big, macro. So which is the bigger one, 50S or 30S ribosome? It is a 50S ribosome. Hope I think you remember this. So this is the in detail aspects of erythromycin. If you still need much details, you can consult the textbook. Now we'll move on to the next important aspect of erythromycin, that is called pharmacokinetics. The pharmacokinetics of any drug, there are four important subcategories, like you have to describe about how the drug will be absorbed and how it will be distributed and where it will be metabolized and how it will be excreted. So coming to this erythromycin has got some interference with the absorption. That is the reason it will be given with enteric coated tablets. Absorption is incomplete. It is widely distributed in the body. It can cross the serous membrane and placenta also. When it is crossing the placenta, yes, should be a bit careful in pregnancy. And its plasma half-life is very short. It will be around 1.5 to 2 hours. Here the one more important thing is metabolism. It is metabolized by cytochrome P3A4 enzymatic system. So it is causing drug-to-drug interaction. So please do remember, any drug which interferes or which metabolizes through cytochrome enzymatic system, there is a definite risk of drug-to-drug interactions. And not only that, that you should remember. So when it comes to the excretion, the erythromycin is excreted through the bile and to the bile and to the fecal matter. Now here in this slide, look at the different pharmacokinetic properties of other macrolide antibiotics, like Erythromycin, if you see the erythromycin half-life, it is 2 hours, whereas clarithromycin 3.5 hours. Azithromycin is more than 40 hours. Please make a note that azithromycin has got the highest plasma half-life in macrolide antibiotics, whereas telithromycin, it is showing 10 hours. So you can see that except the erythromycin, all other macrolides will be transformed into the active molecules, and you can see that 50% of the drug will be eliminated through the urine, very small fraction, whereas 85% will be excreted through the bile. So that's all about pharmacokinetics. Now look at the adverse drug reactions. In adverse drug reactions of macrolide antibiotics, as you know that in pharmacology the routine adverse effects will be nausea, vomiting. So it causes gastrointestinal disturbances, and even it can cause diarrhea. Please do remember, erythromycin can cause diarrhea. The reason behind, they can stimulate motilin receptors in the gut. So it also causes hepatitis and cholestatic jaundice because it is metabolized to the various. Now look at the uses of erythromycin. No doubt, if patient is having gram-positive infections, so we'll prefer penicillins as a first choice. If patient not in a position to take penicillins, then no, we have to go with the erythromycin. So erythromycins are used in streptococcal pharyngitis, the tonsillitis, mastitis, community acquired pneumonia, Haemophilus influenza infections, diphtheria, tetanus, syphilis, gonorrhea, and leptospirosis. Syphilis and gonorrhea are nothing but sexually transmitted diseases. So, to pinpointing the uses of macrolides, you should remember as a first choice and as in the form of second choice. For your level, there is no need to remember like this. Just write it down, the uses of macrolides. So what is this? Can you diagnose what it could be? Don't say that the two beautiful girls are seeing at the mirror. No, but there is something else is there. What is the most common problem in teenage? Yes, it's nothing but acne vulgaris. So when there is acne vulgaris, the two, if it is being infected, so you will be asked to use erythromycin. So erythromycin has got a very important role in the treatment of acne vulgaris. Now let us look at the dose and preparations. Usually erythromycin is available in the form of oral preparations and as well as topical preparations. Whereas oral preparations, it will be 250 to 500 mg 6th hourly for 5 to 7 days. Pediatric patients will go with the 250, whereas adult patients 500 mg for 6th hourly. Whereas if it comes to the topical preparation of erythromycin, it is a 30% concentration of ointment is used for topical treatment of skin infections, carbuncle and other things. So that's all about erythromycin. Now we'll move on to the another very important antibiotic in macrolide, that is called azithromycin. Azithromycin is a very important, very widely used macrolide antibiotic nowadays. It's nothing but new azellide congenere of erythromycin. So what I will do, I will just give some salient advantages of azithromycin over erythromycin. So this will give you a very clear-cut picture that in what way the azithromycin is superior than erythromycin. Azithromycin has got expanded spectrum than the erythromycin. The spectrum of activity is very high. The another important thing is the better pharmacokinetics. Better pharmacokinetics in the form of acid stability, rapid oral absorption, and marked tissue distribution, and we have seen it has got a long half-life. One more advantage is that the azithromycin does not metabolized by cytochrome 450, so that it doesn't have any drug-to-drug interactions. It can be safely prescribed. Another important advantage with azithromycin is that better patient compliance. Compliance means patient acceptability. For example, if you take erythromycin, how many times you have to take? Erythromycin 500 mg 3 to 4 times, 5 to 7 days. Whereas if you look at this azithromycin, usual dose of azithromycin is once daily for 3 to 5 days, so that the patient can easily accept by treatment with azithromycin when compared with any other antibiotic. And of course, the azithromycin has got better efficacy. Efficacy means effectiveness. So this is the advantages. So it has got a broad spectrum of activity, so that it will be used for different infections like Legionella pneumonia. Where this Legionella pneumonia is very common, those people round the clock working in a AC environments, like software people, like centralized air condition, hospital setup, or any other setup. So these people are more prone to develop Legionella pneumonia. In the Legionella pneumonia, the drug of choice is nothing but azithromycin. Of course, the chlamydial trachomatis. It is one of the most common microorganism causing urethritis, Donovanosis, and chancroid. So these are all the things which we will be using as a therapeutic agent. So dose, I think I already told you, 500 mg once daily for 3 to 5 days. Now the third drug which we'll quickly go through about clarithromycin. Here the spectrum is similar to erythromycin. In addition to that, clarithromycin is also active against Mycobacterium avium complex. This Mycobacterium avium complex, we will see patient with tuberculosis with HIV. Patient with HIV, he may get a more chances of developing Mycobacterium avium complex. So in that case, clarithromycin is the choice. And Mycobacterium leprosy, Bacteria fragilis, H. pylori. So it is used in upper respiratory tract infections, skin and soft tissue infections, H. pylori infections, which H. pylori means, which you can see in peptic ulcer. It causes peptic ulcer. Mycobacterium avium complex in HIV patients, and some of the prophylactic conditions like endocarditis in valvular diseases, patient with pneumocystis, JRUAC, and HIV toxoplasmosis. So clarithromycin has got a very important, and don't use this as a very common drug, and it has to be prescribed only it is sensitive to clarithromycin and when it is not able to control with previous antibiotics. As usual, any drug causes adverse effects. If it doesn't cause adverse effects, it cannot be called as a drug. So clarithromycin causes GI irritation, skin rash, and it causes very typical neutropenia, decreases the white blood cells. It also causes hepatic dysfunction, and it can also cause if you use irrational use of this particular antibiotic, it causes super infection. So we are left with another antibiotic called telithromycin. Telithromycin is a extra reading for you. You read about telithromycin in your textbook. So other narrow spectrum protein synthesis inhibitors you need to read in this chapter is lincosamides, streptogramins and linezolid. Please do remember this word linezolid. So this is the last slide where you can see the therapeutic uses of these macrolides. It is active agonist gram-positive, many gram-positive, staphylococci, streptococci, corynebacteria, chlamydia, and mycoplasma, spirochetes, and some of the gram-negative bacteria. Also, it will be useful. So, students, I think you understood this particular macrolide antibiotics. I'll come back to you with some other new topic. See you. Bye bye.